Hey, so it's been about 2 weeks since my last update, and there are a couple of things that have been holding my interest. For example, I've been pretty interested in what's happening with China based companies and the regulations that they're facing, and how that's going to affect all of the stocks in general, and particularly the stocks that I'm invested in. I've also been seeing a lot in the news about electric vehicles and autonomous vehicles and the companies associated there. So I'm seeing that a lot of the more traditional companies, such as Ford and General Motors, are releasing statements about how they are developing their own electric range, and it's interesting for me to understand what that will do to the electric vehicle makers that I'm invested in. We had an IPO last week of a very well-known company, and yes, I did invest. So it'll be interesting to see what was happening with that. But I suppose before I jump into what I've been doing over the last couple of weeks, I thought it might be interesting to share a little bit more about my investing strategy. And I started doing this and then realized that there's a name for it. So my strategy is called dollar average costing, which basically means that I'm investing a set amount every month. And the reason for that, for me personally, is because I am, as I've already mentioned, brand new to investing, and also I don't have a large amount of cash reserves saved up, and I also don't have the experience in investing to know where to invest a large sum of money and be confident that it's going to provide a decent return for me. So by investing a small amount each month, it allows me to, I suppose, control my risk, because as I go through this process, I'm learning more and more. So if I do make a mistake, I'm only going to make a relatively small mistake. And also it allows me to capitalize on the market while it's down, that being when prices are low, but also to purchase, I suppose, less stocks when the prices are high. So even if I get caught in the excitement and purchase something at a high price, there's really no way I'm going to be able to commit a large sum of money to any one single investment, because I just have a set amount that I spend each month. And at the moment, that is about €200 for me. And now it's been interesting. So there's always something to buy, and there are always temptations to pull money from somewhere else and to add it to my portfolio. And in some cases I have actually done that, where I felt that the prices were lower than what they normally are, and by the time I would come to my next monthly date where I add additional money, the prices would go back up. So one such example actually in the last couple of weeks was Tesla. I did mention in my last video that if Tesla prices dropped down a little bit, I would be purchasing more, and that happened, and so I actually added in some additional money. At the minute, I really don't know if that is wise or if it's going to be a problem for me in the future, but for the most part, I'm trying to stick to the monthly €200 investment every month consistently. And a couple of months ago, I decided that I should spend some of that hard-earned cash on some Alibaba stock. I had been watching the stock for a while. It was pretty much increasing since August. There was a brief dip in September. I knew Ant Group was about to IPO, of which Alibaba is the parent group, and I saw the stock drop below $300 and I jumped at the chance to invest. Since then, it has been decreasing. I mean, it's simmering around the same price, but around the 250-60 mark, but has not recovered and come back to the value where I bought it. So I'm currently at a loss for Alibaba. Now, I do understand that this is a relatively short space of time. However, it made me curious to understand what is happening. And essentially, as far as I can tell from some articles, some videos I've been watching, there are a number of regulatory issues in China, antitrust issues where large Chinese companies are required to be regulated and to share their financial information, and this is causing some challenges. However, as from what I can tell, Alibaba is still a very profitable company. It's still a good investment choice in theory, excluding the regulations and the politics side of it. So yeah, I mean, I am not sure right now if I should invest more in Alibaba because the prices are down, and this is hopefully a temporary issue, or if these issues continue, will the stock be able to recover? I have absolutely no idea. I also am invested in NIO, which is another China-based company, and I know that there are some regulations happening as well with the US at the moment, which is requiring Chinese companies to essentially give the US access to their audit information. I believe that bill is due to be signed by Trump. And if that happens, those companies would need to share their internal information with the US within 3 years, or they could risk being kicked out of the US stock exchange. Now, I believe that the Chinese stock exchange has been developing over the last decade and more, so it's not such a huge challenge for the Chinese companies. However, I have no idea what that would mean for my little investment and how that would affect me. So I am watching this space eagerly and trying to gather more information on that and understand a little bit more about what that really means for me and what should I do in terms of my my Chinese company stocks. The next interesting topic for me at the moment is, as I mentioned earlier, the electric vehicle makers, and that is also what NIO does. So you can see there's a little bit of crossover here, and then I'm also invested in Tesla as well. So as I mentioned earlier, last time I gave an update, I had invested maybe a couple of $100 in Tesla, so I had a half a share, 0.5 of a share. In the following days, the price dropped down to, I think, about $550, $560. So I invested in another 0.5, bringing my average price on Tesla to about $563 per share. And I know now that it is around the $600 mark, or maybe a little bit more. I'm not exactly sure what it closed at yesterday. So I think that my Tesla stock is actually up 11%. So I'm delighted with that as a choice. The challenge for me right now is to understand what is the opportunity that is in Tesla and in other electrical vehicle makers, because on one side, I think that these are really innovative companies, and I think that there's a lot happening in this space. But I've been reading some articles in the last couple of weeks citing that, the large traditional motor companies like Ford and General Motors are investing and putting a huge amount of time and effort into this autonomous vehicle side of things as well. And the reason why that's a concern is because although they are behind the likes of Tesla and potentially NIO right now, I mean, in terms of innovation, once they are actually able to compete on that level, they have a huge amount more in terms of resources, as they're established companies and have been operating for a very long time, and also they have the influence in the industry to potentially be able to match or even beat the production capabilities of the companies that I'm talking about right now. And what I'm curious to know is, what does that mean for Tesla? What does that mean for NIO? So, I mean, are these companies going to continue to grow and the value of their stocks is going to continue to increase? And if so, for how long? And if not, where's the top? So what I'm trying to do at the moment is employ an invest and hold strategy, at least for maybe 6 to 12 months until I see what's happening with the stock. However, I'm really unsure right now if I should invest more heavily in these same companies or diversify and spread that risk a little bit. So yeah, I mean, as I go through this journey, it is extremely challenging and interesting to understand what is the right thing to do. So although I don't know the perfect thing to do, a little bit of diversification is never a bad thing. And I have managed to invest in something new in the last couple of weeks because it has just recently gone public, and that is Airbnb. I think everybody knows what Airbnb is and the challenges and headwinds that they have been facing during the pandemic, but also the how they were able to pivot and how they've been able to actually recover and be quite strong through that as well. So I found out that Airbnb was going to IPO, and then literally just Googled some articles, watched some videos to try and understand what was happening, as well as getting some advice. And I decided that I'm just going to go in and invest right now in Airbnb to see what happens over the coming months and year or two potentially, because what I'm not sure about right now is whether or not the pending pandemic recovery is built into Airbnb, or if, once vaccinations get rolled out globally, if Airbnb is potentially going to see a further increase and a growth spurt, in which case me being invested now will allow me to capitalize on that at the time. So I invested when it opened last week, and I think the price that I got was around $150. I just bought 2.5 shares, and to be honest with you, in the last couple of days the stock has dropped. It's more like around 130 now, 120, 130. So I'm not worried yet. I'm interested to see what will happen and how this will progress. But once again, the age-old challenge, I'm wondering if I should invest a little bit more in Airbnb on my next round of investing, my €200, or if I should firstly just hold and wait and see if that recovery starts to happen as the vaccination gets rolled out, or if that is actually already baked into the price. So you can see it's quite interesting. I'm very unsure. I'm doing a lot of Googling, and within that I'm starting to kind of come back to the same resources again and again. I'm kind of starting to follow a couple of key people on YouTube and things like that, where I'm finding that their content is resonating with me. But yes, feel like I'm getting a little bit more informed as I go along, but still have a lot of questions, and I'm really taking a little bit of a gamble with every single decision that I make. But it's okay, because the investment is relatively low, and if we take a look at my portfolio, we can see that actually overall I don't think that I'm doing too badly. So let's just take a quick review of how things look now, and will also let us see some of the other maybe smaller investments I've made that I haven't necessarily mentioned.
Okay, so here we can see a nice snapshot of what is happening with my portfolio. I hope to do this in each video to help me to track over time how the portfolio has actually progressed. If we take a look on the far right in the results column, we can see that there's probably about a 50-50 mix of red and green. So overall, this actual portfolio right now as it stands is up 2.8%, which is obviously a little bit lower than I would like it to be, but considering the current situation, as a lot of the stocks closed quite low yesterday, I'm happy to still be up at all. So yes, let's keep an eye on this, and let's see what the next couple of weeks brings.